Ladies and gentlemen, this is Rex and this is Why Did Napoleon Invade Russia? By the channel History Matters. Yes, another History Matters video is about Napoleon. Yeah, Napoleon's biggest mistake, invading Russia. He invaded Russia with 500,000 troops. At the time, that was a big number. No, for any time, it's a big number. Even in World War I, somebody came up with 500,000 troops and like, holy shit. Obviously, the numbers start to go in depth, millions, 1 million, 1.5 million, right, during the World Wars. That was big as it can be. But yeah. And during the Napoleon times, 500,000, that was a big number. So he basically invaded Russia with 500,000 troops, took Moscow over. Russians basically left Moscow and burned it, right? I mean, imagine that, Moscow and it's all historical buildings. They're like, fuck the buildings, we'll just rebuild it and just burn it before going away, right? So they retreated, burned the Moscow. Napoleon went there. But Napoleon just thought that if we take Moscow and certain key points, right, Russians will just, give away, like how every other power that he came across did. Like, yeah, we are defeated, okay, that's it. Russians didn't do that, right? Russia knows this. Russia has been, under invasions like this for a long time. Not at the level like Napoleon did, the way he took over Moscow, but even, Swedish, right? And lots of people, right, basically has done that, like try to pursue Russia, try to invade it, while Russia just retreats into its massive land, right? Scorched earth, technique and all that technique, and then winter comes. Everybody suddenly realized like this is way too big of a conquest than I thought, and basically retreats eventually. But Napoleon took over Moscow, and then winter came. He was not prepared for winter, right? He just thought like, yeah, we're not going to be needing that. A bit of cocky, right? By this point, Napoleon was not like how Napoleon was at the start. He was trying to get more egoistical and cocky overall, right? The Napoleon of the start would have prepared for winter. Like, what if we don't take? But he didn't, and eventually he had to retreat because of the winter, and it just became a horror. So I think that video is still on my channel. I deleted most of my Napoleon series from Epic History TV because I was issuing them, right? So I deleted there. That was one of the first history series I did long ago. So I think 2 or 3 videos still there, and that one, Russia one, is there. There was a just point blank horror show, right? Only 50,000 or so survived after 500,000, and that was the downfall. And why did Napoleon invade Russia? If I remember correctly, it was because of the Russia started to trade with Britain and things, right? I remember correctly, Napoleon created some kind of a wall, right, around the countries that he basically, he took over, or he had some kind of alliance with, or something like that. So he created this kind of trading wall that nobody trades with Britain. Nobody let the Britain ships port there, right? I don't know what it was called, but Russia didn't give a shit about that, right? But eventually Russia started to trade with it, and Napoleon, obviously, there were many reasons, but that was like, you're gonna do this, and he just kind of, got pissed off because of it. I'm pretty sure that was the reason, if I remember correctly, but we'll see. Remember, we'll feel like Rickson. Don't forget to like, subscribe, so I know which type of videos to react to more. Check out the Rickson, there's a link in the description, and yeah.
We all know that Napoleon's invasion of the Russian Empire ended, how shall we say, poorly. But one of the big questions is, what was he hoping to achieve, and were these goals realistic? So, a bit of context. When Napoleon had risen to power in the year 8, or 1799 as it's normally known, Europe looked like this. By 1820.
French Revolutionary, after French Revolution, they created a calendar. So that was the French Revolutionary calendar, year 8.
12, on the eve of Napoleon's famed invasion of Russia, it looked like this. Napoleon had managed to defeat the Prussians, Russians and Austrians before this, and after rearranging their territories had demanded that they take part in what's called the Continental System. The Continental System was basically the don't trade with Britain club, and this lack of trade was quite damaging to Russia. As such, in 1810 the Russians...
Yeah, so if I remember correctly... Wait a minute,
then the Russians simply damaging...
Yeah, there was a wall that goes through here, I guess, right? Like no one's supposed to let British ship here, if I remember correctly.
To Russia. As such, in 1810 the Russians simply opted to ignore Napoleon's demand and trade anyway, which the French Emperor did not like one bit. Now, this wasn't the only problem that plagued Franco-Russian relations. The first was ideological. Russia represented everything that the French Emperor despised. It wanted a meritocratic Europe in which certain rights were enshrined and certain values were seen as being simply universal. And Russia did not embody these ideals. The second issue was Poland. In 1807, Napoleon had defeated the Fourth Coalition and as a result took this territory from Prussia and gave it to the brand new Duchy of Warsaw. In 1809, Austria tried to defeat Napoleon, and just like everyone else, they failed. And so, as punishment for even trying in the first place, they lost this territory to the new Polish state. So how does this concern Russia? Well, the last independent Polish state was the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and that had been partitioned by Austria, Prussia and Russia. This meant that a large Polish minority lived within Russia, meaning that if there was a conflict between itself and Poland, or its patron France, there would likely be an uprising. Furthermore, the close friendship between the Duchy of Warsaw and France meant that Poland could be used as a launching point for an invasion into Russia. As such, the Russians could not tolerate an independent Poland unless it accepted the Russian Emperor as its king. The Poles and Napoleon said no, and so things got a little bit tense. So by 1812, the French Empire...
Polish country, Polish, Lithuanian, whatever you say, got consumed by 3 countries. I think that happened during the Catherine the Great's time, right? Catherine did that, right? If I remember correctly. Yeah. So basically, obviously, whenever something like this happens, where Middle East is kind of an example of when certain type of group of people basically get divided into different countries, this kind of a political issue rises up, right? Like something happens here, other countries, same population, basically would revolt. So this creates this kind of a weird political situation where there is always some kind of a friction, right? And Napoleon also taking that into account. It's just fucked up.
Empire was deeply bogged down by Spanish and Portuguese resistance in the Peninsular War. This was becoming costly in terms of money and lives, and so, as a result, Napoleon needed a win. And what better way to do so than to have a quick and easy victory by invading Russia? Napoleon knew that he couldn't continue to fight the costly Peninsular War and invade Russia without Prussia and Austria on side. As such, Napoleon pressured them to commit small forces to the invasion, which they agreed to. The idea being that they would make an enemy of Russia and so wouldn't be able to join it against Napoleon. So as we all know, Napoleon's invasion of Russia was a complete failure, and so surely he must have been able to predict some of the issues he faced, right? Well, no. Napoleon was convinced of his own genius and considered the Russians to be an inferior people who would be unable to withstand his armies for very long. As we all know, this invasion went terribly for France, and Napoleon's days in power were soon numbered. So, in summary, Napoleon invaded Russia for many reasons. To enforce the continental system, which in theory would starve Britain of money and resources, to destroy Russia as a potential future enemy so that France could focus entirely on the Spanish, Portuguese and the British, and to strengthen his grip over Eastern and Central Europe as well as the new Polish state to enforce Napoleonic ideals there. However, the most obvious reason he invaded was simple. He thought he was going to win. I hope you enjoyed this episode and thank you for watching, with extra thanks to my patrons that you see on screen now. And a special thanks to James Bisonet, David Archaeologist, Azaka Flash, Party...
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Biggest reason of them all, he thought he was going to win. Because why wouldn't he think that, right? Why the fuck Napoleon wouldn't think that? Look, of the 3 biggest conquerors you can think of, Alexander the Great would be there, Julius Caesar would be there, and Napoleon would be there. These are the 3 top names you think of, right? Now, among them, Napoleon is the only one who came across this kind of a great power. Look, Alexander the Great, at his time, obviously there were enemies, right? There were big enemies there, but not like how Napoleon faced, somewhat advanced, right? Powerful, whole empires, right? Even the Romans didn't come across that. Romans came across tribes and shit, right? Barbarians, like they called it. So Caesar didn't come across something like that. Alexander the Great had empire, but not like this. Napoleon had massive empires, powerful, somewhat advanced empires that have an edge because of the things they did in past. That kind of empire, like experienced empires. And Napoleon just walked past them like they are nothing, right? I watched Epic History TV series and I remember thinking like, holy shit, Napoleon just walks over them. It's like nothing, especially at the early days, right? With his marshals like Davout and things like that. So, of course, when you do something like this at that level, right, of course you're going to think like, Russia, I don't care what happened in the past. I don't care how many people ran away from Russia. I'm not going to be... None of them were Napoleon. I'm Napoleon, right? Napoleon at the time just wanted to become that, like, I'm Napoleon, which means I'm way too powerful, way too genius. Even he started to think like that. So, of course, there were many mistakes made. You can't really fault Napoleon for that, right? Power going to the head, that happens to literally anyone. So, yeah. Right, well, that was why did Napoleon invade Russia? Was there history matters? Yeah, there are many reasons, many political reasons, but starving Britain reason, and just ego reason all around because I'm Napoleon. If you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe. Check out the reaction. There's a link in the description. They will find many history videos. I guess there's a playlist too with history with way too many videos. So check that out if you haven't seen them. And yeah, I'll see you next time.